The broadcast is now starting. All
No,
attendees are in
we didn't
listen-only
want to
mode.
do that. Okay, that's all right.
um, so I'm not sure. I have two screens on my desktop right now. I'm not sure which one you're seeing.
I am seeing a battleship
Okay.
and kind of a variety of other things.
Now, do you see the PowerPoint?
There you go. And just to
Okay.
let you know, because the broadcast has started, folks are going to hear what we're saying. I wonder if I can.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Seth. I know we're a couple of minutes early, but we have kind of a limited time within the webinar, so to make sure he got to present all of his information. Seth, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Don. My name is Seth Maier. I'm the program operator for the Veterans and Military Families Program within the Employment Security Department. I'm happily that this is going to be recorded, so those who are catching in after we get started here will still catch the information. The timer here on this presentation was originally 90 minutes, and it looks like the timer started about 21 minutes ago. So as I'm going through these slides, yes, please put your questions in the chat box, and I might go ahead and move through a couple of these slides a little bit quicker than I planned to, just making up for the amount of time that we've lost as the timer had already started. So I prepared nearly 40 slides. Like I said, I'll get through as quickly as I can. I prepared this presentation for an audience of supportive employment representative within HCA. So it's probable that we also have some existing common customers between what the workforce model can help out with and the customers that you're serving. And my hope is after this presentation that you'll be a little bit more motivated to connect with our team to offer some assistance to our customers. I know that my program is specific on a certain population, but WorkSource is open to all job seekers. And we have no problem collaborating with other programs to help that job and employment goal. So these are the topics we're going to go and cover, and I'm going to get right into it. So on to military and veteran culture. So above the waterline, what's most visible to those that identify someone as a member of the military or a veteran whose service is complete? For the military member, that's the uniform, the medals, they got a really sharp salute. But for the veteran, it may be more noticeable in how they talk, their grooming standards, even articles of clothing, hats they're wearing, backpacks, old articles of military clothing that they continue to use. At the waterline, part of the development of a member of the military is a recognizable transition zone of what they've been told and what is codified into creed. The overarching values of the military culture set aside personal needs in favor of teamwork, selflessness, shared goals, and perhaps most central, being of service to others. Measuring one's worth by how well one serves others selflessly. Each branch of the armed forces have their own set of core values, principles, and mottos. This in addition to the significant differences between the roles of a sailor, like in the Navy and the Coast Guard, the soldiers in the Army, the airmen in the Air Force, and the Marines in the Marine Corps. Universal to all service members, whether they enlisted or began as an officer, they each take what is considered a sacred oath, the oath of enlistment, promising to remain faithful to and defend the social order of the United States of America as embodied in our nation's Constitution. Below the waterline, some hidden aspects of this culture become almost like soft skills. Skills that aren't directly taught, yet skills that are deeply interwoven as part of the person they are. Discipline, teamwork, self-sacrifice, loyalty, and the warrior trident. Those warrior values, the warrior beliefs, and the warrior ethos. These hidden aspects are valid for those both currently serving and those who have completed their service. These military ideals and core values often continue to be deeply held by the veteran population. So the U.S. ended the draft for military service in 1973, transitioning to the all-volunteer force that exists today. At that time, 2.2 million were in service. Yet today, as you can see, our military service is reduced to 1.3 million. which is technically less than 0.5% of the entire US population that are eligible to serve. Some similarities and differences exist between the active duty and the veteran population. Despite more women serving now currently than previous eras, men still greatly outnumber the population of those who volunteer to serve. Understandably, the same ratio mirrors for the veteran population. Education-wise, those entering enlisted service mostly have only a high school or GED education, whereas officers typically have at least a bachelor's degree upon entering service, and a little bit more prepared upon leaving service to enter the workforce. The enlisted person faces these education gaps upon leaving service, and a majority will pursue education shortly after military separation, where most are able to obtain a 2-year or higher degree. This post-service pursuit of education causes a 2 to 6 year gap in their employment history and compounds other barriers they are facing in meeting their employment goals. Ages under 25 are the largest demographic to enter service, but the veteran population are balanced between those both below and above retirement age. Those who volunteer to serve come from all over the globe, with Washington State carrying the 12th largest population of veterans in the nation. With 1/2 of the US population carrying 100% of the burden of military service, this doesn't mean that they serve alone. More than half, 52.3% of all active duty members have a spouse. 6.7% of those marriages are dual military marriages, meaning that both spouses are serving active duty military. The spouse is the single most important support system for the service member and veteran. Caring for the spouse is also caring for the service member and the veteran. The average military family has been separated by deployment for between 2 to 3 years over the last decade, often departing for multiple deployments with little or no advance notice. Compounding this lack of stability is that a family must permanently relocate every 2 to 4 years when new military orders are issued to the service member, moving them to one of 800 military bases in more than 70 countries and territories abroad. In contrast, Britain, France, and Russia have 30 foreign bases combined. Even in families that are relatively stable, the effects of more than a decade of combat operation deployments are more than visible. Traditionally, military spouses left their jobs to follow their service member across that nation or international boundaries, and spouses frequently abandoned their career aspirations, including pursuit of education, to support their families during the silent service. Understandably, military spouse unemployment remains at a stagnant 26%. In a recent survey of military spouses by Hiring Your Heroes, 68% of respondents reported they believed being a military spouse had a negative impact on their ability to have a career. 61% of the respondents indicated that they were unemployed, and of the 61%, 52% of them desired employment. So on to our program. All WorkSource programs and staff serve the veteran population. Thus, every WorkSource staff is essentially the veteran's representative for this customer demographic. The Veteran and Military Families Program is responsible for providing education and guidance when working with 3 populations related to military service. The transitioning service members are those who are in an active duty status and is within 24 months of retirement or 12 months of separation of military service and have been deemed unprepared for their civilian transition. The military spouse is obviously the person who's married or in a domestic partnership with a member of the branches of the military, but certain spouses are eligible for the individualized career services in this program. But I like to keep in mind that the spouse potentially also could be a veteran or active duty service member as well. And then there's the veterans with the significant barriers to employment, who each meet certain eligibility criteria, are the primary population served by this program, with performance responsibilities under the Jobs for Veterans State Grant, a U.S. Department of Labor VETS program. Not all transitioning service members, spouses, or veterans will meet eligibility to work with the Veteran and Military Families staff, but we'll talk a little bit more about these significant barriers and eligibility criteria in an upcoming slide. So a little description of the roles within WorkSource. The DVOP, this is the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialists. They provide individualized career services to only those who have a significant barrier to employment. The maximum emphasis is directed towards serving veterans who are economically or educationally disadvantaged. Then the leaver, this is the local veterans employment representative. Leavers conduct outreach to employers, business associations, and engage in advocacy efforts with hiring executives to increase employment opportunities for veterans and encourage the hiring of disabled veterans. Then the CVSR, the Consolidated Veteran Service Representative, they serve a dual role. They're both the DVOP and leaver. They're located typically in rural regions that lack adequate resources in their communities. Unique in Washington State is that one of our CVSR positions is targeted specifically to the veterans of the 29 tribal nations located within our state. And then we have the workforce representative. And every workforce representative is a veterans rep, because all veterans can be served by the workforce representative. A little bit about veterans' priority of service. Any veteran without a dishonorable discharge, that could be other than honorable, general, as long as it's not dishonorable. And some of those eligible spouses receive priority service. And what this means is that they're giving priority over non-covered persons for the receipt of employment, training, and placement services. Those veterans who have a dishonorable discharge are still served just as any other customer is served in any of our workforce centers. However, for the individualized career services offered through DVOPs, leavers, and CVSRs, require any discharge status of anything other than dishonorable. This is an example of a veterans questionnaire that helps identify veterans and eligible spouses that are potentially eligible for individualized career services with the DVOP or CVSR. Each workforce office has their own individual procedures, but ultimately, some form of screening or triage occurs before the veteran or eligible spouse is ever seen by the DVOP or CVSR. Some of those significant barriers, the special disabled, which is a 30% service-connected disability above, or just a disabled veteran, homelessness or at risk of homelessness, or those who are escaping domestic violence, recently separated from the service, unemployed for more than 27 weeks in the last year, justice-involved veterans that were previously incarcerated, those lacking a high school diploma or GED and are low income, using maybe state resources like food benefits. And then specific populations of the veterans, veterans ages 18 to 24, the Vietnam era veterans that served between 61 and 75. I mentioned those eligible transitioning service members that have been deemed that they're not prepared to enter civilian life. And then the spouses and caregivers of those veterans that are 100% service-connected disabled. Please remember that when a veteran or spouse are identified eligible to meet with the DVOP, our frontline services are still going to assist them with the basic services that they can help with at that level. Simply like reviewing and helping out with resumes, job searches, maybe referring to a specific workshop that's been identified as an area that they can grow in. What we want ultimately is the best for our common customer. Thus, if you're working with a veteran who clearly meets these barriers, we'd much rather have a warm handoff versus referring a veteran to see the vet rep at the workforce center, just as a walk-in-the-door customer. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the walk-in-the-door referral. It's just that the veteran customer will experience this level of screening, and any help you can make in helping them understand that it's helpful for both us and the common customer to go through that screening so we can help them as quickly as possible. I mean, all workforce representatives are trained to recognize and represent the veteran, and they're paying attention to these significant barriers and listening and asking open-ended questions to obtain answers to these types of questions. However, if you are meeting a customer that is meeting this eligibility, I encourage you to make a connection with your local workforce office. Find that DVOP. They are active collaborators and are always seeking new partnerships. And if we're serving the same customer, allow us the opportunity to leverage our resources to help your customers so we can both celebrate what would hopefully be a positive exit for that veteran. So There's obviously more workforce centers in the state than I've got listed here, but these are the workforce centers here throughout the state that I have staffed with my my program staff. I'm mostly comprised of DBOPs, which are the blue, and there's a regionally located lever, which would be the red, and those yellows are those CVSRs, those ones that are serving the more rural regions. My allocation for this year is 22 DBOPs, 10 levers, and 8 CVSRs, and I currently have 6 openings that we're looking to fill. All workforce and state government positions are posted on the careers.wa.gov website. This is our flagship tool that we assist our customers in getting them connected to employers. But most jobs boards are not actually free. Often an employer may have to pay up to $800 for one job posting. However, Worksource WA is at no cost to the employer, as are the resources that Worksource offers to both employers and job seekers. On the flip side, for the job seeker, they know that they are finding legitimate jobs with verified employers, all within our evergreen state. We're going to verify that they're in the tax system and that they're a legitimate employer. Otherwise, they won't be able to have the opportunity to post a job on our board. Workforce centers across the state have adjusted to COVID-19 and are offering our entire suite of workshops in a virtual format. Even after post-COVID, our agency is looking at carrying both in-center and virtual workshops moving forward. Despite several canceled in-person hiring fairs as a result of COVID-19, several virtual job fairs are still keeping pace, with 7 virtual job fairs scheduled between now and July. Check out our Washington State Veterans Employment Facebook page, where we post all types of veteran employment-related opportunity, including veteran-focused resources and job fairs across the state, including these next 7 virtual events. All of our workshops and hiring events are also posted on the workforcewa.com website. Speaking of preparing the veteran, one of the most difficult things to master for a veteran is how to explain what they did in the military so that a civilian employer will understand. ONET Online is by far my favorite and most effective military translator tool that converts the military MOS, AFSC, or rating, their basic military job title, and matches it with civilian occupations. Each occupation is complete with a wealth of knowledge, including tasks accomplished and tools necessary to be successful. These are great things that the veteran can include in their resume to describe what they did, thus effectively offering the vocabulary, at least in civilian terms. The Career One Stop combines all the American job centers in one site across the nation. It's an excellent resource for job seekers looking outside the Washington state for their next career while maintaining part of the American Job Center network. A couple of added job boards resources comprised of USA Jobs, federal contractors, and private employers who indicate they want to have a preference for hiring of veterans. This is through the National Labor Exchange, and they got a couple different National Labor Exchange job boards I want to bring your attention to. One is for the veterans. That's the one above the top there. As you can see, there's, when I took this screenshot, there's 1.7 million jobs available to look across the nation. Again, these are federal contractors. The USA Jobs is mixed in here, and like I said, those private employers that want to hire a veteran. However, they just created a new one in response to COVID-19. It's called Need a Job Now with the National Labor Exchange. And right now there's over 450,000 jobs from vetted employers in all industries that have immediate hiring needs due to COVID-19. So these jobs are ready right now. Here are a few veteran hiring initiatives that we're actively engaged in. Yes Vets, the Employment Security Department in partnership with Washington Department of Veteran Affairs, Department of Commerce, Washington State Military Transition Council, Washington State SHRM, locals, chambers of commerce across the state have all partnered to create this statewide campaign to hire veterans, supporting House Bill 2040. This bill recognizes employers who show their commitment to veterans employment by hiring veterans into the workforce. The employer gets a window cling sticker they can put on their business window, so as customers walk in, they can see that they have hired a veteran, and they get a new sticker every calendar year that they've hired at least one new veteran. The Hire Vets Medallion Program is the only federal level Veterans Employment Award that recognizes a company or organization's commitment to veteran hiring, retention, and professional development. Gold and Platinum Awards are given to small, medium, and large employers. Hilton Honors, this is a military program providing up to 100,000 hotel points to eligible transitioning service members and veterans to support needed travel for verifiable employment-related activities, such as a job interview, training for a new job, or finding housing after accepting a new job. This is something new. This is our future state. Senate Bill 6626 was just signed into law this past April and goes into effect next month. This is going to create a military spouse liaison with the Washington Department of Veteran Affairs, working closely with our Veteran and Military Families Program. We're expecting a position announcement for this opportunity on the careers.wa.gov website soon. So if you know anyone who's looking for that opportunity as a military spouse, then they're probably a subject matter expert and they would be able to help out with this role. Work Opportunity Tax Credit, and I don't necessarily need to go through all of these line by line, but the big thing is there's only a 22-day window when from the point that the employer makes an offer for the position to that job seeker and the time that they can complete this paperwork to take advantage of this tax credit. The paperwork can be complicated. However, leavers and CVSRs are totally 100% available to assist an employer with any of this paperwork, and there's no cost to that to the employer. We would rather reward that employer and incentivize that employer for giving a veteran that chance at an opportunity to a career. So we want to make sure that we can get them this. But the maximum credit, the biggest one, is $9,600 that would go to an employer for giving this veteran a chance at an opportunity. You might be familiar with several of these resources like DASPA. Got the GI Bill, you might have heard of some of that stuff. There's VA Vocational Rehabilitation. So if the veteran's got a service-connected disability that's a barrier to employment, the VA was willing to take on the responsibility to get them retrained. The VA Work Study, basically if they're using any VA education benefit, there's a way that they can earn some extra cash while they're learning. It pays state minimum wage, but it's totally tax-free. Then there's Washington Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Those people that have an injury or disability that isn't service related but need to be retrained and have that assistance, that's available through them. Commissioner approved training. This is related to those who are on unemployment insurance. This certainly affects our transitioning service members because most of them go into unemployment, and if they're going to pursue an education in a high demand occupation in our state, we're willing to continue paying that unemployment while they're a student. And then there in the middle, right there in the middle, is the workforce tools. We've got the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act for adult and dislocated workers, Worker Retraining, Trade Adjustment Act, BFET, Basic Food Employment Training. We've got all these little different pockets of money that we can help retrain and get that job seeker skilled to the next level. And don't forget about the skilled trades and apprenticeship programs. VA education benefits work in conjunction with these as well. And what's nice is a lot of these trade schools and apprenticeships offer a wage while they're learning the skills. And if they are using their GI Bill, they get paid twice. They get paid by the apprenticeship, and the GI Bill pays them at the same time. So they're basically living at journeyman level wages while they're learning at the apprentice level. Some of the financial resources that are available to the veteran in the state. The Veterans Relief Act, this is the County Veterans Assistance Program. Every county in the state of Washington is charging some of their taxes to this program. So some of those percentages go into this program to offer assistance to the veterans in their counties. If you're not familiar with this, your county has this program. It's specific to indigent veterans and their families. Food, fuel, clothing, utilities, partial rent, medical costs, and several of them have a service officer to help those veterans with a service-connected disability claim. The Veterans Innovation Program, this is another one that's under the RCW. They do require an honorable discharge. And unique to this program, the veteran has to have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, or has received a Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal. We've got an annual budget of only $200,000 a year, but we have a lot more freedom to assist that veteran for their needs. The key, though, this is just a once-in-a-lifetime award. So once the veteran has used this award, it will never be available to them again. Some of our homeless veteran programs, a couple of them managed by the VA, supportive services for veteran families and healthcare for homeless veterans. They're not everywhere, but a lot of the agencies that have these programs they're a godsend for a solution to get a veteran off of the street. SSVF pays first, last, and deposit for the veteran and their entire family. And the healthcare for homeless veterans, they offer the VA supporting housing vouchers similar to Section 8, and they only have 3 offices here in our state. Portland being that kind of gray area because we're so close to Vancouver, Washington. And the Homeless Veterans Renegation Program, if the veteran is homeless and they are seeking employment, they can work with the DVOP, and we have a funding source that can assist them in getting that job and overcoming the different barriers that involve with homelessness. What's key is all these different programs have different rules on how they determine who's homeless. But for workforce services across the board, we go with self-attestation. We don't need proof that somebody's homeless. Something new this year that some of your service members might not know, if they have any service-connected disability, they've got a Purple Heart Award, they're a former POW, they've got a veteran health ID card, and if it indicates Purple Heart, former POW, or service-connected, they have access to the military bases across the United States, including all the shopping exchanges, the commissaries, the golf courses, the lodging facilities, everything. So that's something that's kind of brand new, and I just wanted to share that information. On Washington Department of Veteran Affairs' website, they've got all kinds of other links to different resources, and I just captured a few here just to offer an example to the audience of the different resources that are available for the veteran population. There exist hundreds of veteran service organizations, and there's so many to choose from. What's really important is for those who need to file a service connection disability claim or need an advocate in any of the VA systems, these VSOs, that's what we call them, offer their service at no cost to the veteran. They don't have to be a member of their organization, and there is no pressure for them to join their organizations. There are VSOs in your community, and do you know who they are? I hope that this kind of gives you an indication of maybe some organizations that you can look with and partner with, especially if you're running into a veteran who may have a service-connected disability and for whatever reason hasn't filed for one yet. These are the organizations that can help at no cost. So I wanted to pull the curtain back a little bit. We've got about 12 minutes here on some of the ways that some things that could be impacting your current customers right now in response to COVID. The paid family and medical leave and the CARES Act. Washington's paid family and medical leave, as long as the workers record at least 820 hours of employment, even if it's with multiple employments, they're eligible for this leave program. Certain military-related events, birth of a child, caring for family members, or taking care of your own medical conditions, including COVID, eligible workers can take up to 12 weeks of paid leave a year, with certain circumstances to increase that up to 18 weeks. For those whose employment have been impacted by COVID-19, the CARES Act offers an additional $600 weekly benefit to any accepted unemployment claim of at least $1 per week, specifically for the weeks ending March 29th through July 25th. Employment Security's response to those impacted by COVID is clear in this picture. Going back to 2013 to present, you can see the fluctuations year to year based on the number of individuals claiming unemployment compensation. with 2013 taking on the brunt of our nation's recession. The spike in unemployment claims is truly new ground for our agency and our nation. The three industry sectors most impacted, not seasonally adjusted, are the leisure and hospitality. Over 190,000 jobs were lost. Construction with 74,000 jobs lost. Education and health services with nearly 60,000 jobs lost. Washington's economy lost 527,000 jobs in April alone, increasing the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate for April from 4.4% in 2019 to 15.4% for 2020. The benefit from the CARES Act has made thousands of claimants eligible and has motivated them to submit claims, resulting in unprecedented amounts of impacted workers making claims. There is a light, however, as the total claims for regular unemployment, the pandemic unemployment assistance, the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, and ongoing claims are slowly reducing week by week, and we hope this trend continues. Despite these off-the-chart numbers, our ESD call centers are still answering over 97% of all calls and answering questions and offering directions. We are keeping up with the influx of claims. The Employment Security Department, which encompasses both WorkSource and the unemployment compensation, are working hard for both businesses and job seekers of our state. In wrapping up, please remember all WorkSource staff are veterans representatives, and not all veterans will need or be eligible for the DBOP, leaver, or CBSR services. Feel free to refer any job seeker to our WorkSource centers. But if you are meeting a veteran that meets our eligibility, I hope you've made a connection with that DBOP or CBSR in your region so you can make a warm handoff. If you're not sure where the nearest WorkSource office exists or need help connecting to a DBOP or CBSR, please connect with my program support specialist, Monique Martin, and she'll connect you to our nearest team member. And Dawn, that is all I have.
Okay, wonderful information. I would encourage folks as they have questions to type them in the chat. And I'm actually open it up at the time to see if I see anything right this moment. And I do have a question, Seth. Actually. Yeah. The agency I worked for was a WorkSource partner in Moses Lake for, well, as long as I was there. And I worked pretty often with the person was, I can't remember if she started out as DVOP and ended up with being an LVR. It was one or the other, one way or the other. But she was just a marvelous resource related to things that veterans might benefit from. In addition to the fact she helped a boatload of folks get jobs, so it was a really good thing. But as I recall, she mentioned them having to have the DD 214 coming in to prove eligibility for services in some cases. That's accurate, right?
Actually, no.
No?
When the veteran creates their profile on worksourcelaw.com, they will enter their dates of military service. They will disclose to us if they're experiencing any housing barriers. They will self-disclose if they have a disability. If they have a service-connected disability, they have an opportunity to disclose what percentage there is. So there's a way that we can pre-screen our customers when they complete a profile. And everything we do is based off of self-attestation. When it comes to us spending money on the customer, like if we're going to pay for tools or work clothing or pay for a training certificate, we will obviously need to get evidence for those items to meet that eligibility. And if they have difficulty in obtaining their DD 214, we know how to obtain those resources and get that information quickly.
Wonderful. That's good to know. And I do know that there were occasions when I was working with a person who had lost access to their DD 214, and so there were a couple of different agencies in Moses Lake.
I've heard so many different stories of how somebody could absolutely lose a DD 214. Someone got their, they were one day late in paying for their storage locker, and that storage locker went to auction. Inside that storage locker was their DD 214 and private paperwork.
Yep.
I had another veteran who had a house fire. I had another veteran who got kicked out of their house, and the girlfriend threw all the stuff in the front yard, and everyone went picking through their stuff before they could retrieve. And what you know is DD 214 was missing. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that someone could lose that document. That document is incredibly important, as it's the only tool or document that actually proves that military service.
Mm-hmm.
But for the basic services, we just go off of self-attestation. And when we have to get to a higher level of spending some money on somebody, we go through the proper procedures to ensure that they're eligible for those dollars.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when you mention examples in relationship to people that lose their DD 214, obviously somebody who's homeless may, more often than not fall in that category because they simply can't carry that many items with them. So, I think that kind of goes hand in hand. The folks who may be without housing also, or without their paperwork of various sorts. So good to know that the LVERs, the DVOPs are folks that you can check in with to at least give you ideas about how to get that, help a person get that DD 214.
Yeah, thank you. A good point, just kind of dawned on me a little bit here, is that all the DVOPs, all the leavers, the CVSRs, 100% of the staff under this program, they're all service-connected disabled, at least of a 30% rating or higher. These are all veterans that have gone through these systems and navigated these complicated government programs with all the red tape and everything that's around them. They've all have experienced that process. They're subject matter experts in their regions. They know of every veteran resource in their community, and they really actually look forward to meeting that veteran who's got a barrier that they don't know what the answer is to, because they really enjoy looking and trying to solve those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
WorkSource is employment focused, but all the staff are veteran focused, and they really just want to help the veteran move forward in their life. And that isn't always necessarily going to be solved with employment.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very familiar with all the tools that are available, and really just trying to help that veteran move forward.
I appreciated the fact that you brought up the kind of crosswalk to look at job description with the military and how it translates to potential jobs in the non-military community. I had a gentleman on my caseload one time who was a munitions expert. Went to do a resume for him and kind of went, huh? And so just that crosswalk is a huge thing for being able to help people with a job that you're not necessarily sure how that's going to translate to the civilian world, helping them to be able to come up with a resume that highlights the valuable skills that they've got to find then a job. So I had real life experience on that one. That was kind of a head scratcher until we figured it all out.
Yeah, I mean, when they spend a career in the military, after 20 years of service, they're eligible for retirement, and they can serve up to 30 years. So technically, someone could be 38 years old, leaving the military service with a full retirement, and they've never once in their life have written a resume.
Yeah.
So, they all go through a transition program. They kind of give them some images of what looks like a good resume, and they're just trying to duplicate what they see, but they don't necessarily understand the nuts and bolts of how to communicate really the skills that they have that the employers can understand and value.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then it's compounded. They've got, they might be dealing with issues related to post-traumatic stress, and they haven't even filed a claim yet, and they're struggling to keep for that veteran who's got these kind of barriers and aren't able to cope in a healthy way with the issues associated with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury. They haven't received any of those services yet. It can be very overwhelming, and it's been described to me directly from the veteran is that their life is like a tornado, and everything's moving around so fast that they just can't focus on any one thing to help them move forward.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in. That's where we're assisting that veteran. And, you know, we don't judge. We work with an incarcerated veteran. We don't judge on what they've done. We're moving them forward. They've already served their sentence. Let's help them move forward and let them have some success. Especially if they served their country honorably, we want to offer that service, even if they've made a mistake.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that you brought up that I think is incredibly important too is the spouses of the enlisted and the services that you can provide to them. I don't know that, well, personally, I don't know that that's something that occurred to me as regularly as it might have, to ask individuals, were you married to someone who was in the military, or were you a domestic partner of someone that was in the military, and then accessing those services on their behalf or helping them too. So that's an awfully good reminder that it isn't always just the person that's enlisted, it's also their spouse, their domestic partner.
Well, thank you, Don. I'm really glad that you captured that part. That's really important for us in this state. Both our commissioner, Susie Levine, and Washington Department of Veteran Affairs Director, Alfie Alvarado Ramos, went and performed listening sessions along every military base here in our state and connecting with those military spouses to find out what are they going through, what barriers they're facing, and that ultimately has led to that law that was just signed into that bill that was signed into law last April. That's going to create this military spouse liaison within Washington Department of Veteran Affairs, so we can start accounting for those spouses and making sure that they still have access to their career aspirations, regardless if they're in a process of frequently moving all over the globe in a 2 to 4 year cycle.
Yeah, it was interesting to me. I ended up taking some classes on serving people who have been enlisted in the military, and it was stressed several times, just the way the family gets kind of disconnected because the service member, as you said, is gone, sometimes at kind of a moment's notice, and that spouse or domestic partner has to take over and become, you know, both parents and you know, taking care of everything within the family and this and that. And so when the military veteran or it's still active military but comes home at some point in time, they feel kind of like an outsider. They don't necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't necessarily, everything has been taken care of without them, so they don't have necessarily a place immediately when they come back, and that can create discord. I mean, it can create discomfort for the family, and so I think there's
it's a form of institutionalization. The military services, and they've been told what to wear. There's literally an order of the day of what military uniform you're going to wear that day. They are told when it's time to eat. They're given orders for everything. There's a process and an established order of operations for everything, so they understand how everything works. And then when they leave military service, that doesn't exist anymore. You know, I mean, even trying to have someone prepare themselves for a job interview, they really don't know what to wear. So we honestly have got examples of what are appropriate, you know, articles of clothing for an interview, whether you're applying for a mechanic's job or if you're applying for an executive leadership role.
Nice.
I mean, so we've broken it down. We understand those barriers, and there's sometimes a cost barrier. They can't afford the clothes, and we've got different financial resources to help them out with that, to get them prepared for an interview. And if that means they need a nice pair of pants and a nice shirt, I mean, I had a veteran on my caseload before I was in this program operator position, and he's one of those big bodybuilder guys that don't have a neck. It goes right from their ears to the tips of their shoulders, you know, and there's not a shirt anywhere that was going to fit his neck. And we had to go find a specialist shop to go ahead and have a shirt made for him so he could prepare an interview.
Oh, goodness.
You know, I mean, he was always just wearing T-shirts to interviews because that was the only thing that would fit, you know, and, you know, so, I mean, we've got a pretty good innovative bunch across this state and in creating solutions for the unique barriers that our customers are experiencing.
Very, very good to know. So I'm looking at the questions, and I just want to read what there is in there at this point in time. Chris had said, thank you for doing this webinar. Chris Chloe, program leader, peer family member of disabled veterans. And it says who I am at 74 and 44 roommates and partners in our shared journey of care, NAMI, Thurston, Mason, Lacey, Washington. So you I think mentioned that there are numerous agencies that may serve a person. And so NAMI may be a piece of things, or a behavioral health center may be a piece of things, or a foundational community supported employment provider might be a piece of things. We can all work together in order to help the person succeed. And I've said in the past, and I'll say again, we all get our ticky marks if we help a person succeed. So if WorkSource and Lever is helping somebody, and a foundational community supports program is helping somebody, and they get a job, both programs get to mark that success and hopefully celebrate that success. So I strongly encourage people to work collaboratively with any resource that they think might help a person. I have a fondness for this particular, the services that you've talked about, because I've seen it work for people on my caseload in the past. And because I work so closely with the local WorkSource staff, and because they were well, really good at their jobs, I ended up gaining a little more knowledge and a little more enthusiasm for the services that were available, because I'd seen them be offered to people and see the successes. So very, very good stuff. Chris had also said, very well done, thank you. And Shirley would do that as well. Does anybody have other questions? I've got the chat box open as we speak, and I'm looking at it. Anything that you want clarification on? Kudos can also go there. We have either a shy bunch or a kind of quiet bunch today. It was funny.
No problem. I suspected that most people were probably going to have some questions about unemployment, so that's why I wanted to include that little bit in there towards the end. I mean, I'm not an economist, and I'm not an unemployment insurance. I'm not trained in anything with unemployment insurance compensation. Mm-hmm. But I have seen our state respond. I mean, we went from about 6,800 unemployment claims a week. That was a very big week for us, 6,800 claims in a week. Mm-hmm. And in 1 week later, we were processing over 180,000 claims a week. So, a lot of our customers out in the field are having concern about getting their unemployment check, and they're wondering why it's taken so long. There's just no way that our state was ever prepared to go from 6,800 claims to 180,000 claims in 1 week.
No.
We rapidly rehired a whole bunch of staff to be able to start fitting those. Our staff that were not necessarily essential, since our WorkSource centers closed down, we didn't have that front-facing customer staff needed. A lot of those got shifted to the unemployment insurance, mm-hmm. at least to be a tier 1 person to answer calls. And for a lot of people that are getting getting through, 97% of them, a lot of them are just thankful they got to talk to somebody so they can get some real information of what's going on.
Yeah.
And the most recent thing that happened is there's a lot of identity theft and fraud going on with people filing unemployment claims for people that are not unemployed. And because of that, the Employment Security Department actually delayed making payments by 2 days so they can do the investigations on those claims to make sure that they're legitimate. Actually, I was impacted by this. Someone filed an unemployment claim under my name, and so Employment Security is obviously checking all the Washington State employees that are employed. They know who are employed on these claims, but that something like that is causing a 2-day delay in payment for somebody. And I worked with one of my DevOps who says that he's working with a veteran who's living out of a hotel room right now using those UI payments. And that 2-day delay in receiving that payment resulted in that veteran going homeless without any kind of recourse. So there's a ripple effect in any kind of thing that we do here. But as an agency, we're trying to do our best and stay within the regulation, fighting fraud, because fraud still exists all around us. and making sure that those benefits are protected for those who've earned them,
Mm-hmm.
and they need them.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear the unemployment fraud has affected one of my colleagues, and just it's scary to think that there are people out there that are, I'm going to say, sophisticated enough to have figured out that whole system and how to actually get the money. But even
I
scarier,
mean, all they need is a birth date, social security number, and a name. You know, and you hear about all these breaches in identities, you know, Sony and PlayStation, they get all these breaches and stuff, and that's all they need are those 3 pieces, and they can file for unemployment compensation for almost any state. And for most states, they're paying the money before they discover the fraud. So those who are committing the fraud are able to collect that money before they're caught, or at least to shut it down.
Frightening. Frightening, and I can't wrap my head around it, because that's obviously not something I or any of the folks on the call would do. So it just boggles my mind that there are people that kind of make a living doing that kind of thing. Let's help them get legal jobs.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's a good living, you know?
No.
Yeah, always looking over your shoulder like that, because you know what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah. I do see that Chris entered in the chat box again and said NAMI national and local chapters offer in-person and online programs for family members of veterans of education and support that are without cost to participants called Homefront. And I don't know if everybody can see it. I think she sent it out. I apologize, Chris, if Chris's male name, Chris, sent it out. Out the link for the Homefront website. And so if that's something you're interested in seeing, I can copy the link and send it in my thank you for attending email. My colleague always says, I have words and I will try and use them. Well, that's evidently my challenge today. I have words. So I can send that out in my thank you for attending email, should anybody be interested in seeing that as well. I do know, just based on what you were showing, there are far more resources out there than probably any of us are aware of. And in coming months, when we're helping people to kind of deal with the trauma of COVID-19 and get back to work and hopefully some semblance of normal life, it's going to be important to be aware of the different resources and use them to help people succeed. Because I think money is going to be stretched thin for any agency providing services to people. So the more you can maximize those things, the better off a person's going to be.
During the recession, as we were recovering from that, some of our centers were so impacted with customers that some had to wait 2 hours to use one of the computers in our center.
Oh, geez.
You know, and so when the wave of COVID is when people are coming back to work and those employers are going to be opening up their positions and reopening their businesses, we're expecting this tsunami-like wave of job seekers coming into our workforce centers, and unsure how the COVID response and how it's social distancing is still being played out. That's all being calculated and figured out, but our agency is expecting to respond with a huge number of job seekers that are going to be seeking our services. And those veterans that, are going to have that priority of service. So if they are looking for that certificate, they're going to be considered for that. As long as they're meeting eligibility, they're going to be considered for that funding source over someone who's not a non-covered person. So, we really want to connect with those. And so partnering up with someone on your caseload that needs that support, like I had said in the presentation, we're eager to leverage those resources to help that common customer move forward in their lives.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things that I'm trying to remember, I think it was our the Healthcare Authority does every Tuesday at lunchtime update on COVID-19 and kind of how that impacts foundational community supports agencies and therefore the people that we serve, and how to still provide services with physical distancing and that kind of thing. And a gentleman did a presentation on Tuesday related to, perceived future impact of COVID-19. It's a traumatic event, and so the likelihood of people seeking mental health assistance or behavioral health assistance in greater numbers is very strong. And so the audience of this particular webinar, I think, most folks are probably dealing with people that have mental health issues in some capacity. Expect to see more of them. And that's what I see too, and what I hear you also saying. We've got to maximize using all the services available so that a person can succeed.
Right. And a lot of our call center staff, in talking to them, they're hearing some really difficult information what people are going through, and our staff, they're very empathetic and compassionate people, and having to hear those stories, it's having an effect on them as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they're very motivated to help that customer as best as they can.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of like my staff that are helping out at the tier 1 level, it's just tier 1. I mean, there's only so much that they can help, at that level, and that's unusual for my program staff, because they're very good and adept at helping people and solving the barriers. And so this is definitely having an impact that way as well with our staff.
Mm-hmm. No, very true.
But I agree with you 100% that the folks out there that are being impacted by this are definitely going to have a long-term, repercussions from them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think your point brings about the thought too that we also need to do a really good job of supporting each other. We need to be very aware of the kind of secondary trauma that comes from hearing people's stories, and the challenges that they've been through, and how that can impact us. So self-care is important. Supporting each other is important. I don't care what people helping business you're in. The potential is there for you to end up dealing with, they call it compassion fatigue or secondary trauma or whatever they call it. It's being stressed, what you've heard people say, and just be very aware that that's a really, really important reason for doing very good self-care, because you can't provide good services to others if you haven't provided good self-care. I see a couple of other comments. Linda said, this has been a very helpful webinar. I wonder if we will have the option to print your slides. I will send them out, and I'm assuming, Seth, you had said you're going to put them in PDF format so that they're not, you can't change them. But I would assume you're okay with people printing out the slides.
Oh, absolutely. Everything I have here, I prepared that not only would you print out, but you'd share it with all your friends too. So
that's wonderful. And then Chris shared another link about, says NAMI for persons 18 and older, the website for that as well. And so I can send that out with my thank you for attending email as well. I'm taking a picture of it, so I've got the link to include in the email. All right. Any other questions, comments, resources you want to share?
Well, I hope you collect Monique's contact information there. If you were trying to connect with one of our DevOps or CVSRs, she's got our directory right to her fingertips. She's probably the fastest person that will be able to respond to you in getting that connection. So I really hope that you're able to develop some partnerships with the knowledge of our program now.
And that will, that's your last slide, correct? That's actually the information.
Yes.
So it will be going out to this whole group. And as Seth said, share with people that you think might benefit from this. I'll also send out the recording link so that if somebody was only able to attend part of the webinar, or if you know of someone else that might benefit from hearing it, feel free to share it with them. I will mention too that we do monthly topical employment webinars, and a lot of you may know that. The one in June is related to substance use disorder and supported employment. So it's going to talk about how Cascade Mental Health, actually behavioral health, ended up incorporating supported employment into their SUD program. So that's coming up in June. We also have the Java Developers Community of Practice call once a month. And that's a call where it's intended to be part presentation and then part discussion to just support each other, that people that are Java developers, because it's a hard job. It's challenging, especially now, and we've been sharing ideas about how to continue doing job development with the COVID-19 precautions. So please feel free, if you haven't been on our distribution list, to reach out to me, and I'll make sure you get the flyers for both those things for June and ongoing. So having said that, and I don't see additional comments or chats, unless you have other questions at this point in time, I think we'll just end the meeting. Yeah, thank you so very much for information. Very, very helpful.
No problem. Thank you for being an attentive audience.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.